You're only confined by the walls you build yourself. On that note, I, Dr. Nidhi Srivastav, Associate Professor, IIEBM, welcome you all to one more interesting session of the IIEBM's induction program of 21st Batch Ignite 2020. The session will be of an hour where first 40 minutes will be knowledge sharing and rest 20 minutes will be question and answer. You can type your questions in the chat box during this session that will be addressed towards the end of the session. Our today's speaker will give her insights on career prospects in FMCG. So let me introduce Ms. Meher Legha. She's currently holding the position of Area Manager at ITC Limited. She's a passionate sales professional by the day, an avid reader, writer, and dog lover by the night. Having graduated from Lady Shri Ram College for Women, DU in Economics, and henceforth from SIBM in Marketing, she has about 5 years of corporate experience amongst different industries and business units alike. She has been associated with Morgan Stanley for a brief stint as a summer analyst. She was an associate executive for corporate communications at HCL Technologies. An all-rounder, she was the joint coordinator of the corporate relations and placements team and also editor at SimBeat, the college editorial board. She has also won the National Bravery Award from the President of India in 2008 at the age of just 14, where she rescued her entire family and helped the nation towards it. And she has a lot to share today. So without taking much time, let us start this session. And like the IIEBM, we say, let knowledge prevail. Over to you, Ms. Megha. Ms. Meher.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a warm introduction. It feels really good coming back to campus in one way or the other. And like ma'am said, we have 40 minutes for this interaction. So I would love for it to be as interactive as possible. And now, I mean, just, before I address you guys, I'd just like to give a little bit of brief about myself. I am basically a marketing professional. Right now, I'm with the sales core FMCG team of ITC Limited. I have graduated in economics and majored in marketing. And today's interaction with me is just going to be very relatable. I hope for you, very informative, because I am also closer to your, age group and closer to your professional life cycle than probably most people would be. So I hope that you take away a lot from this session. So ma'am, if we can just have the PPT, then I would like to begin the session. Yeah. So, guys, the first thing that I want to address to everybody who's witnessing this session right now is that a lot of acronyms for an MBA you will come across your entire lifetime. But for me, the acronym that has made the most sense for an MBA is marry your best attribute. Now, I'm going to tell you a little about why I think that's true. Because, see, by the time you get ahead to doing an MBA in your life, your personality, your core skills, your functions have already formed. You are already an established character. You already have certain characteristics that will go along and make you the professional you will become. But for me, an MBA was all about finding my strongest attribute, my best attribute, which means my best characteristic, and just rolling with it, making the most of it and including it in everything that I can and do in those 2 years to make it better. So just a couple of things I did across my MBA lifetime, across the 2 years, and I'm sure that's how long your session also is, that made my MBA a lot more fruitful than I expected it to be, rather. So, just going by the circle that I have in front of me right now, the first thing is join a club. No matter how small, how big it is, join something that interests you. I'm sure just like every other MBA college, IIEBM also will have a nice established set of, clubs and committees that they have. Join any club that you want and be a part of something, create something. It gives you that nourishment that you don't even realize right now that you need. And it goes a long way 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, when you're sitting for, competitive job interviews, when you're in a problem solving analytical approach kind of scenario in your job, it makes a lot of sense. The second thing is not out of a batch of maybe say 200 to 300 people, Not everybody gets to join a club. So what's the second best thing you can do is that you can participate. Participation and enthusiasm is key. That is so important, because it builds teamwork. It builds certain skills and soft qualities in you that recruiters are actually looking for going ahead. And so hence it's extremely important. You know how this is it's a very long standing joke in the Indian student organization, that everyone, participation is what everybody's looking for. Ek certificate mil gaya, and that is, that's about it. But that's not how you need to look at it. You need to look at it from a very different angle altogether. The participation is going to help you get to where you want to be. It'll help you inculcate those qualities that you're missing. It'll help you gain experiences that you don't currently have. Also, guys, if I'm just going too fast, please feel free to just write a message in the chat, and I'll accordingly reframe myself. The third thing is, do you all remember Pareto's rule? So Pareto is basically a rule that says that, suppose in an organization you have about 100 customers. So basically 20% of your customers are getting you 80% of the profits of an organization. That 20% is the cream. And this Pareto applies to almost everything in life. In life also, if you're focusing on 100 things, it's those 20 things that you need to, probably top 20 things that you need to focus on, that make your life richer, that give your life more value. So Pareto applies to you at your MBA as well. It's a hard fact of the matter that 20% of the cream of your batch, or 20% of people who are working at themselves every single day, who are working at being a better version of themselves every single day, are the ones who are eventually going to be lined up with offers, who are eventually going to be the ones who are picked up by recruiters. So it is your duty to, you owe yourself to be a part of that 20%. And all of this that I'm mentioning is going to help you get there. Right? So just always constantly remember that Pareto applies to every day of your life. Then the fourth thing, very important thing that I want to talk about is, of course, this is a term you would have heard a number of times across your MBA life, and you will, because you all are just starting now. This is your induction. You have to network, but it has to be targeted networking. It cannot be aimless networking. It cannot be networking without a purpose, or without an aim to sort of have a give and take. You cannot just associate yourselves with professionals, or with people who you come across on various social platforms, and engage with them without giving them anything else in return. For example, I get a lot of these kids coming to me and asking me help regarding their projects, asking me information about the company I'm currently associated with. That is not how you breach a conversation with a professional. You have to lay the ground first. You have to give a little bit of background about yourself. You have to ask themselves what is a convenient time for them to get through across to you. You have to be particular about the language you are using, the format you are using. So these are very day-to-day basic things that nobody tells us about, right? So that is my aim today, to be very relatable, and hopefully, have you take away some softer characteristics that nobody talks about in your MBA. The second last thing is, learn an aesthetic. So what I mean by an aesthetic is a craft. Learn an art. Learn something that gives more depth to your character, that lends more depth to your character. Maybe you could be someone who has probably just read 2 books in your life. And now is when you decide that I want to go ahead and, educate myself more. I want to be well read. I want to be well spoken. I want to be someone who can hold a conversation on, more than just 2 topics. Do anything. Maybe you've someone who has always loved to paint and hasn't gotten the chance yet, and now you want to get into it. Go ahead. So learn an aesthetic. In these 2 years, do not block your mind, and do not kind of convince yourself that you have time for nothing else except Excel sheets and projects and internships. Do not convince yourself of that. Yeah. And the last thing is, just say hi. All of these people who are going to be studying alongside with you, your faculty, your colleagues, your benchmates, everyone is going to form your fraternity. They're going to form your social circle. And these people, whether you realize it or not right now, are the ones who are going to be helping you. You're going to be helping them, because nobody 5 years from now is going to understand, not your family, probably not your, a better half, because you guys have spent these 2 years together. together that have conditioned you for the professional world together. So nobody's going to understand exactly what you're going through like them. So just say hi and do not have a mental block as to who you're going to associate yourself with. Am I going to get something from them in return or not? Do not think about that. Yeah. So moving on, I have experience across two industries now, and I've been in the corporate world for about 5 years now. And after a lot of interviews and after a lot of working with very different teams across, you could say across the globe as well, I've realized something that's very very important, and it took me a long time to figure out, and nobody told us when we were starting our MBA. You have to have a story. People are looking for a story, when whether it is you being recruited, whether it is you leading a team going ahead a year from now, 2 years from now, whether it is you talking to your colleagues, whether it is you forming another association on your own. You have to have a story. So for example, just to give you a perspective of what I mean by that, what is my story? Like my personal story would be that I am someone who is from a defense forces background, like you can see in the slide right now. I am someone who loves reading. I am someone who loves writing. I am someone who is extremely fond of animals, in particular dogs. So, you have to weave the story, and the story cannot be vague. The story has to go ahead and tell and explain your character to the person sitting in front of you. They have to they have to get attracted to your story. They have to relate to your story. Now, how can you make your story relatable is something that you have to personally figure out on your own. And this is largely a hit and trial method. You will also come across so many examples. Like, for example, there is something that I read on LinkedIn the other day, and this colleague of mine it helped him crack an IIM interview just by virtue of the fact that he was a huge Harry Potter fan. And across his interview, he tried and included that and what he learned from the series and what were his learnings from the book, what he thinks of J.K. Rowling as an author. And the interviewers loved it. They loved how he went about it. They loved how he correlated it with his professional experience. So that is something you have to learn and slowly start building within yourself. Every time you sit down for an interview, every time you sit down to sort of get into a new phase of your life, have a very clear story. Have your story in place so that people know that you have some clarity as to where you're going. Yeah. Now, this is an important slide according to me because, when you're just beginning your MBA, a lot of your opinions and ideas about what an MBA actually is formed by your social peer group, right? And a lot of these are myths that you don't really realize at that point in time. But 2 years down the line, even you'll be like, you'll also be realizing that XYZ person told me, this fact about an MBA, and that's not true at all. So, just like you can see from this slide, a lot of your ideas about an MBA are formed from your ex-colleagues' opinions, from your undergrad, your school circle, your mom and dad, your chacha, chachi, cousins, everyone, right? Your entire extended family, social peer group, like I said. So let's bust a few important myths one by one, and three most important myths that I have come across, across my MBA life of 2 years, and then my experience later on as well. So, one second, am I audible now? Can someone just say a yes on the chat? Yeah. So yeah, ma'am.
Yes,
All
yes,
right,
you are
thanks.
audible.
So, yeah,
Yes.
the first myth that I want to talk about is that people constantly say that an MBA helps you build hardcore skill. Now, I'm completely against this. I do not think that an MBA or 2 years of a course will help you build a hardcore skill that you did not already have in your life. That's not what it does. It teaches you how to analyze. Yes. It teaches you how to manage. Yes. It teaches you how to organize. It teaches you how to look at things from a bird's eye view. So you will start looking at the bigger picture at the end of these 2 years. And if you've really done your MBA very well, what the most important quality that you will develop is that you will be able to anticipate a problem before it hits you. That's very very important. So the most valued professionals right now in any corporate are the ones, not the ones who can solve a problem, They are the ones who can anticipate a problem before it hits the person. You can already visualize and see 4 months from now, this is the hindrance that I'm going to face, and this is what I can do right now to stop that. Those are the people who are really, really indispensable to any organization. Yeah. So please get this out of your head. You're just beginning your journey. So that's why I think it's important for me to share this with you, that at the end of the 2 years, you will have 10 new hardcore skills. No, you will, if you are lucky, you will have polished your already existing hardcore skills, and you will build soft core skills more. That's something that I'll talk about a little later as well. The second is that passion automatically follows after an MBA. Now, this could not be further from the truth. It does not work like that. If you think that this 2 years is some magical time period in your life after which you are going to, automatically discover your calling in life, that's not how it works. Even after this, there is going to be a lot of struggle. There are going to be a lot of questions in your head. There are going to be a lot of why am I doing this? Why am I stuck in a 9 to 5? Should I leave a 9 to 5 kind of routine for myself? Should I go into another business of my own? A lot of these questions will still come in. But what an MBA will equip you with is the power of decision making, which you did not have earlier on. You will learn how to be extremely decisive. You learn how to be analytical, because sometimes in the battle of the heart and the mind, this is what the MBA teaches you, that you have to understand the situation as to which situation to give more of weightage to, your heart or your mind. So that is something you will learn at the end of the 2 years. And of course, the third thing is that you will change the world. After just 2 years of an MBA, you are going to be a young gun in the organization. You'll probably be the youngest person there, and you are just going to revolutionize everything and just change the world entirely. That is not how it works at all. It is something all of us wish we could do. And even me, when I started about 2 years back with ITC Limited, I thought I'm going to come in and I'm going to change the entire organization. And how slow are these people? And nothing gets done on time. And that's not how it works. You have to be very grounded. You have to be very humble. You have to realize that you will just be a sponge. All you will be doing is soaking in information, because you are a complete newbie. You know nothing about the industry, about the firm, about your trade partners, absolutely nothing at all. So you will, if you go in with the idea that, oh, I'm in MBA postgrad now, I know a lot more than these people, and you will come across a lot of people who will be senior to you in terms of years of service, but they might not have the qualifications you have. But tomorrow, if you look down on those people, these are the people who are going to guide you or supposedly be your mentors, at least for your initial few framing years, and that's very important. So never, never, never go in with the idea that you are above the rest because you have this degree. Never do that, and you'll be surprised to find how common this mistake is. So do not do that at all. Yeah. So another thing that, if you'll just look at the slide, I want to quickly talk about is that you have to define your why to get to your how. What that means is that you have to ask yourself constantly, why am I here, or why am I doing this particular thing that I'm doing? Why am I doing an MBA? What am I going to get out of it? That once you get the answer to that, is how you're going to get to your how, which means, how do I need to get to that exposition that I want? Because, and why is that connected? So say, suppose I want to be, suppose a CEO of a company, right? Now I need to figure out how to get to that position. First, I need to figure out the answer to as to why I want to be the CEO. Do I want it to be the CEO because it gives me a lot of power? Do I want to be the CEO because I want to change the way a complete industry functions? Do I want to be a CEO because it gives me money? So that why can be very specific, and it is very individualistic to everyone. It can be different for 10 people. But once you figure out your why, you will know how to get to your how. Yeah. So it's a little philosophical, but it's worth thinking about. Moving on, this is something that's a little technical, but very important, and nobody talks about it. And so I want to have. I mean, of course, you guys are first year students and you're just starting, so you will not know about something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So there is something, and you will learn about this, of course, going ahead in your during your MBA, especially those that are going to be taking marketing. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is basically a pyramid of the 5 stages of needs that a person needs to kind of achieve in their life to reach a growth level or a self-actualization level, where you are very self-aware of your strengths and weaknesses. So for this, basically, I just want to relate this Maslow's hierarchy of needs to your MBA right now, because it's very important that you think that way. So the first basic pyramid may, if you can see, the first level is your absolute basic necessities, which is roti kapda makan. Now see, for you right now in your life, that is sorted, because right now, because of course, because of the lockdown, you're at home, your kapda is taken care of, your roti is taken care of. And even if the lockdown was not in place, you would probably be in the hostel. So again, that basic need is taken care of. The second level is about your health and your family. Now, this is a little more personal to everybody, right? So this is something that is extremely it's important on the second level. So this is the second most important need right now, as far as Maslow was concerned, that your health and your family's health needs to be intact. Your relation with your family needs to be very strong. The third is intimate relationships. Now, intimate relationships that you form with, your colleagues, your friends, your significant other, anything, that is something that gives you a lot of perspective and reinforcement. That's the third level of needs. Now the fourth level is, and for you this relationship level would be your social your classmates, right, your faculty, your professors, who are going to be your mentors and guides. So that is something that you have to work on specifically. The fourth thing is accomplishment. Now this is very important. So for you right now across your MBA, this would mean the first time that you get placed, right, the first time that you get an offer for an internship. Then will come an accomplishment when you have successfully finished your MBA, and then when you finally get a final placement with an organization of your choice. That is an accomplishment. Now the last and the most difficult tier to achieve is growth or self actualization, right, which basically means that you have reached that level, that how that we were talking about, where I want to be. You have figured out your why and your how, and you are constantly working and growing towards it. So just always keep this pyramid in mind, because anytime that you feel you're not achieving something you want, something in this pyramid is going wrong. So this sort of has been sort of a guiding arrow for me, because every time that I figure out, or I'm stumbling somewhere, or I'm stuck somewhere, I instantly make a mind map and I refer to this, and I figure out one of the other needs isn't being satisfied, and that's why I'm not being able to get to where I want to be. Yeah. So just research and read about this a little. I'm sure you'll find it interesting. Now the second thing that I want to come to about is this table. So I read this thing and it was very interesting to me. Nobody talks about the opportunity cost that all of us face on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, this is also extremely important, especially in terms of in during the time you're doing an MBA, because you're not constantly going to be spending every minute being productive. That is not going to happen. So this is very important for you to keep in mind. So for example, there is an average person who has graduated after doing their MBA earns 50,000 a month. Okay, so per day it comes to about 1600 on an average. Per hour it comes to about 70 rupees, and per minute it comes to about 1 point some rupees. It's a very basic calculation. So on the right side, if you look at it, is the opportunity cost of time compared to my money. Okay, so which means per minute I am earning 1 rupee if I'm working, or if I'm productively working in the job that I'm associated with, right? Now, if I watch an episode of Dark or BoJack Horseman or any of your favorite series, basically, I am wasting about 46 rupees. How did I come to that? It's an episode is about 40 minutes roughly, right? Multiply that by the per minute worth of your time, which is 1 point some rupees, right? So 40 into 1 point something rupees comes out to be 46 rupees. So we never think about things in this direction, but imagine that episode. And all of this is not I'm not saying that watching an episode of a favorite series is you wasting your time, no, but I want you to change the perspective of how you think about it, which means I have spent 40 minutes looking at the screen watching a favorite episode of mine, and in turn I have lost 46 rupees without even knowing. And why don't I realize it? Because no one is physically coming and taking that money out of my wallet, right? But I have lost it. That's the opportunity cost of watching something else instead of being productive. And I'm not saying that this is a trade off you need to make every day. No. If watching that episode makes you more productive, go for it. Because the second time that you get on to work, you might earn 2 rupees per minute instead of just 1 rupees, because you're that much more productive. But you have to understand which of these activities is worth sacrificing your time for, and that you'll only be able to prioritize once you think of all of these activities in this way, you know. So just another example, like an hour spent browsing social media, 60 minutes, right? Again, money for your time is 69 rupees. Every hour I spend scrolling on Instagram or Facebook, I'm wasting 70 rupees of mine. Again, I don't realize it because nobody's coming and snatching that money from my wallet. Yeah. So this is something worth thinking about, and constantly go ahead and prioritize, tasks in your life according to this. And I would suggest all of you sort of make this sort of table for yourself in the near future. It'll really be helpful. Right. Now, coming to the meat of the discussion, what you all were actually looking forward to is okay. So, I want to talk about in the limited experience that I have of interviewing with various firms and talking to very senior officials from a lot of corporates. Is I want to talk about what they are looking for and what I have realized also they're looking for, at least in this in 2020, and especially with the COVID being a very important factor for us to consider. So now you'll be surprised that the least important skills that they are looking for, I just want to read them out one by one. Specialized marketing skills, complex statistical skills, environmental management and CSR, specialized programming skills, specialized financial skills. Now, this came as a surprise to me as well, because these are all of the hardcore skills that we are basically taught and we specialize in, right? I mean, specialized marketing skills is nothing but a major in marketing from any institute, which is what I have done. So imagine a bunch of recruiters are saying that that is the least important skill we are looking for. I have spent 2 years studying a subject that now recruiters have said is the least important skill that they are looking for. So it is something to think about. Now let's move to the left side of the slide, which says the most important skills, top 5 that they're looking for, is an ability to work in a team, ability to work with a wide variety of people, ability to solve complex problems, ability to build, sustain, and expand your network of people, time management, and the ability to prioritize. Now, just look at all of these 5 skills. There is nothing hardcore about these skills. So just refer to the discussion we had in the first slide, and how I told you that an MBA is not meant for concentrating or focusing or honing your hardcore skills. That will happen automatically. What you consciously have to work towards is the kind of soft skills that are listed here, and the recruiters feel the same way. Today, everyone is looking for someone who can work with a diverse team. Everyone is looking for someone who can solve complex problems, like I said. So, and how will you gain these skills? Again, that's why I started with all of that can in the first slide, right? Join a club, be a part of any event that your college is organizing, network. That is how, only if you involve yourself in activities will you face complexities and then learn how to solve them. So that's extremely important, right? Now, the most difficult skills to recruit, which means that these are skills they are really looking for but can't find very often, right? Ability to influence others, very important. Strategic thinking, drive and resilience, big data analysis, ability to solve complex problems again. So you can see how many times this is being featured, right? So again, drive and resilience is the same point that I spoke to you about earlier on, that after you're done with your 2 years of your MBA, it is extremely important to be humble and grounded and to be ready to absorb and learn even the most basic of tasks that your profession demands, right? And that is what recruiters are looking for. And the first thing, of course, is something that I don't think that people are born with, but you can build also within yourself an ability to influence others. And how will you influence others? When your story is real, when your story is attractive, and people get automatically drawn to you, automatically drawn to the way your mind works, that is how you will be able to influence others, right? So again, something very important to think about, because we go through the entire 2 years thinking that, oh, I need to be I need to top my marketing class, I need to top my statistics class, I need to learn a new language, I need to know how what coding is. No, that's not important. Like, of course, for probably fields like finance, etc., you have to have a very basic understanding, a basic skill is required. Even for marketing, you have to have the basic theory and knowledge in place, but that is not the top thing that the recruiter is looking for at all, and most of the times you don't even realize that. So please do keep this in mind, right? Okay, perfect. So I'll be talking very briefly regarding other specializations also, but since mine was marketing and I went into sales after that, I just want to sort of shed the spotlight on sales a little bit for the next 5 to 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So yeah, so the first thing is, this is also very importantly for the girls. If you can see the stick figurines that I've drawn, this is exactly how the gender ratio is going to look like. It does not look very pretty, but this is what is the reality of the matter. In most of the companies that you will join, in most of the sales organizations that you will join, there will be one woman for every 8 men, right? So that is something you have to be very aware of and very ready to deal with, because that's not something that is told to you very in a very upfront manner. And you'll have to understand how to lead and how to motivate and how to work with a team full of men who will probably be older than you, probably be more senior than you, and you'll have to understand specifics. You'll have to gain a lot more knowledge a lot faster than them. That is how you're going to stay on top of it. Now, this picture of this old gentleman that you see is the first salesman that I worked with when I started my career with ITC. And to date, it just amazes me how sales as a profession brings so many people from different backgrounds in life together, and it just binds them together. And it's amazing how sales does that, which is why to me it's a very fascinating profession. And and that's why it's sad about sales is, according to me, the most natural profession, right? Because every act in life is basically a sell. Every single act in life is a sell. Right now, me talking to you also is me selling you the idea of how to go ahead and do your MBA. It's me selling you the idea of how to go, what to expect in a core sales profession, and what to expect from the FMCG industry, which I will come to in the next slide. So it's very, the entire act of life is an act of how well, or how which how ethically can you sell yourself. So that's very important, which is why to me sales was the most natural profession for me ever. And if you look at all these other pictures, this is forget about roaming around in the best of the cars and the best of the luxury cars that you are probably used to. This is the ground reality. This is how your team will look like. This is the kind of these are the kind of training sessions you will have to eventually take for your team, and this is for the guys and the girls both. And no one will ask you to do this. That's the most important thing. It depends on you, on how proactive you are, and how much you want to bring onto the table, and how much you want to take away from the table, right? So these are the kind of vehicles you will be working with. These are the kind of men you are going to be working with, and you have to be very ready for that. It's not all AC rooms and board meetings. No, none of that. It's a lot of solid groundwork. So in space, and in sales specifically, this yellow circle is where your comfort zone lies, and way far from it is where the magic happens. So you have to be very aware of that. You cannot lie in your comfort zone even for a day in sales. In rather, I would say in any profession, you know. Now, of course, coming to the company that I'm associated with, I have been working with ITC Limited for the last 2.5 years now, and of course, very proud to be associated with such a huge conglomerate in the FMCG space, and the work that they have constantly done for the past 100+ years now. And as you all know, we were initially a tobacco-based company, and about 30 years ago, the company diversified into FMCG, and I think which was very far-sighted of them. They realized that there is a lot of huge scope in the market, in the retail space, in the FMCG space. And as you're all aware, we right now have very famous food brands, very famous personal care brands. All of you know Ashirwad Atta, all of you know Bingo, all of you know Yippee Noodles, all of you know Savlon, Vivelle, Fiamma. These are all huge household brand names now that we are associated with, and the way they work in the market is extremely interesting to observe. And whether you'll always, right now, if you look at the FMCG space, ITC will always be a forerunner. You will always see that it's a clear leader in certain subcategories. For example, take Atta or take our tobacco division. We are a clear leader over there. And in biscuits and noodles and snacks, those are the categories we are still up and coming in. We are always in every sphere a close number two, or at the max, a close number three. So the company has diversified at a very fast pace, and which is commendable for such a traditional organization, because otherwise, when that happens, it takes a lot of time to break away from certain customs that the company is used to. And ITC did that very fast. Systems and processes were changed, and all everyone had to get on board with it. And look at us now. We have targets for our FMCG sales that we never thought about achieving 30 years ago. So the hierarchy in ITC is it's very developed. All I can tell you right now is that there is a complete sales team which is called Trade Marketing and Distribution, which is the team that I am a part of. Our job is to ensure availability, visibility, and freshness of all the products that we produce. We are also the messengers for the brand story that the marketing team creates. We do not create the brand story, we communicate it. It is our job to ensure that almost every household, which is our target audience, has a share of wallet in the products that we produce, which means every household that consumes noodles should at least have 2 out of 5 packs of Yippee noodles. If they're consuming 3 packs of Nestle, that's fine, but I should at least have a 20 to 30% market share in every Indian household. So, and of course, any other questions about ITC, I think I would be very interested to answer them once we open the floor for Q&A. And with this, I would just want to end my session and spend more time on the Q&A. And I just want to leave you all with one message that if you look at the image that I have included here, the red dot is our planet. That is where we live on the entire galaxy. So never ever take yourself so seriously, or beat yourself down so much that you don't have energy to do anything else in your life. Do not take yourself that seriously. Just go ahead with everything in life with the skills you can equip yourself with, a good attitude, because at the end of the day, we are just a speck in the entire universe. So everything that we do has consequences, but do not think that any mistake you've made is the end of the world. In fact, go ahead and make mistakes. Just don't make the same mistake again. That's all. So, ma'am, I think I'm done with the PPT. I think it would be nice if we can begin with the Q&A.
Well, it was a wonderful session. I must congratulate you for the conduction of this wonderful session first. Let us start taking question and answer.
Yeah.
So the first question is, FMCG industry is very fascinating, especially to management students. What is your say on this?
Yeah, so ma'am, I think I agree, if that's how they feel, because it's a very attractive industry also, because it's a very relatable industry, right, ma'am? So, because 90% of what we produce, you will see everywhere around you. So I think that is what attracts them to this industry, and it's very visible, it's very tangible. For example, if I look at the IT industry, it's a much bigger industry. FMCG is actually, I'm not sure if the kids know, but it's the 4th largest industry of our economy. So there are bigger industries in the economy, but this one is very attractive because it's very relatable. So it's interesting to figure, and it affects the day-to-day life of 100%, 90 to 100% consumers. For example, today, if I don't get my favorite brand of biscuits or my favorite brand of noodles, it's going to upset me. And also the marketing teams and the kind of leaps that they have made in this industry are very interesting for consumers to observe. So I think that's something that attracts young people towards this industry for sure.
Okay, these days, a lot of online courses are running
Yeah.
through Coursera, Udemy, and so on. What are your views on this? Does these courses really help? Should students pursue them, especially at this point of time when they are not able to attend the classes physically?
No, definitely, ma'am. In fact, I think not just Coursera, there are a lot of other, very good credible sites and sources from which people can go ahead and introduce themselves to these courses and get them done for free as well. I myself have done it. So, and right now is actually the perfect time because you don't have any other hindrance blocking your way. So, definitely. But of course, like do a course that makes sense to you. Like, for example, for someone who is probably doing a specialization in HR right now, don't go ahead and do a course in marketing management. It doesn't make sense. Go ahead and do a course on leadership. Go ahead and do a course on organization building. So I think it, according to your specialization and what makes sense, and also because these courses aren't typically very long, they will probably take you about 20 to 25 days on an average to finish. So I think it's very easily manageable. And yeah, and but just don't go, ma'am. But another important point is that the kids should not go into it with an expectation that these certifications will get added to their CV and that will make their CV stronger. Yeah, gives you more content to talk about, but those are according to that is not what you're going to get shortlisted. So go ahead and do it to build content and build your awareness and knowledge, not with any other expectation.
Right. Can you just highlight the opportunities and job roles for marketing, HR, and finance in FMCG sector specifically?
Sure, ma'am. Right. So, but I'll start with marketing. So, for marketing majors in the FMCG space, there are a lot of roles. So, for example, there are retail specific roles, which means that all of your retail functioning units, like your pantaloons, like your H&Ms and your clothing stores, which are traditional retail stores, which means people come, buy, and they go. Though they have very good category roles available. Then in the within the FMCG space, conglomerates like HUL, ITC, Colgate, Palmolive, Dabur, Nestle, all of these will have very typical sales roles, wherein you will enlist as a sales officer or a sales trainee. They will further train you. You'll move on to an area manager role. You'll move on to a zonal role, and then you ahead among 10, 15 years down the line, you might even head a branch. So that is how it happens. Then there is the marketing aspect of it. Now those roles are slightly tougher to come by. Those are brand and strategy oriented roles. So there your workspace is very different. There you are expected to build brands, you are expected to build stories. So if someone is interested in that aspect, they can go there. Then of course there is the creative side, which is the publishing, PR, media side, communication side, where you are responsible for the communication of the brand, you are responsible for the digital operations of the brand, you're responsible for right from creating the logo to creating the font size to font color, everything. So all of these things come into picture. So all these teams essentially work together to make sure that a particular brand is successful.
Right.
For finance, I think, of course, core roles, I'm sure they are very well aware of, as far as risk and audit roles are concerned. I'm sure the kids are very well aware of the finance majors. But within FMCG, I would say finance has a limited scope. It's not that it does not have a scope. Of course, we also require finance teams to carry out our day-to-day procedures and our day-to-day, because there are a lot of trade partners that we have. So a lot
Right.
of monetary interactions take place on a very regular basis. So we do require specialized finance professionals, but the scope is definitely limited within FMCG.
So, can you just take us through the hiring process that FMCG companies opt, or if you can just highlight the hiring process, what ITC is taking up?
Sure, ma'am. So, what you will find is that most FMCG companies have a technical and a lengthy hiring process. So, the first round, of course, will be a group discussion wherein you will be pitted against mostly. Oh, sorry. Before the group discussion, mostly what happens is there will be an aptitude. So, when they come to pick you up off campus, I think 80 out of 100 times there will be an aptitude test, which is a very basic verbal and quantitative based aptitude test, and they will shortlist a certain number of people, take them ahead to the group discussion round. Once the
Okay.
group discussion round is over, they will take them to the case study round.
Okay.
Once the case study round is done with, your first round of personal interviews begins, which will probably happen with the brand, whichever. If you are interviewing for a sales role, a person from the sales team will be there, accompanied by the HR, accompanied by the local person from that region. So that will be the first round of your personal interviews, and then there is a second round of the personal interviews where you'll be probably asked to either report to one of their official offices. So till now, all of your rounds are happening in the campus. The last round is in ITC's office itself. So that's how ITC carries out their process, and the others also are relatively similar. HUL, PNG, Nestle, Dabur, all of Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all of them. So they typically have similar rounds. I think to prep for one would mean to be preparing for all. So you have to be very clear with the kind of group discussions that they will have. They will of course be a little FMCG centric. You should have knowledge about the industry. You should know the pace at which the industry is expected to grow. You should have read about the industry before sitting for that
That's
particular
right.
interview. Yeah.
Right, right. So, how has this COVID impacted the FMCG sector? Are there any process changes or branding strategy changes that ITC is practicing now these days post COVID?
Yes, ma'am. So, I'm not sure if you guys have read, but as an industry, we were expected to grow by 9 to 10% this year. That's what
Right,
AC
right,
Nielsen had predicted. And now, in fact, they've slashed the growth rate to almost half. And they're saying that the FMCG industry as a whole will probably only grow by about 5 to 6% this year, which was expected. So we have seen a lot of anomalies in demand right now, ma'am. So there are certain, because when the lockdown was initially announced, people had panicked and they started hoarding. So there was
right.
an immediate spike in very, I'm in fact writing an article about it currently. So I'm also currently researching about this. So it's a very relevant question. What everyone and all the experts are saying, that companies are now going to be very smart. They are going to cut their losses. So, categories like personal care, categories like apparel, categories like clothing, and all these luxury items are going to take a setback. So innovating in those categories right now does not make sense. What is
Right,
going to make sense is, innovating in health and hygiene. The health and hygiene category is going to become very big right now, and it
right.
already has, in fact. So I'm sure everyone here is aware that companies that weren't even associated with health and hygiene are now trying to figure out how to manufacture sanitizers, how to manufacture all of these products, masks and everything. Wildcraft has come up with masks that they are now retailing. So everyone is slowly changing their branding and production strategies, and also everyone is also trying to save as much cost as possible. That's a very real problem. So if you will see a lot of SKUs being discontinued. By SKUs I mean products, being
Right.
discontinued by companies because they might think that it's not a priority right now, and that money would rather go in R&D and innovation for the health and hygiene sector right now. So these are the changes that are happening, ma'am. But by and large, it's good to see that the consumer pickup is has not stalled. People are still, because people are also aware that saving is ultimately a leak in the economy. Anyone who has read a little bit of economics will know that. And eventually people are going to come out and buy, and people are going to come out and start living their lives. So we cannot altogether discontinue the products we were producing, but yes, the priorities have changed. That is for sure.
And what about this digitalization?
Oh, yes.
Because now every company is practicing social distancing, and they are moving towards the digital platforms. So how ITC is practicing that?
Absolutely. So, ma'am, even with ITC, for example, what we've done is we have become very dependent on technology now. So, all of our regular, not just team communications, but even communications with our trade partner. So what earlier used to happen is that we have a complete workforce on the ground that used to physically go, and there is an order taking process. They used to physically go interact with the retailers on the ground, get the orders that they want, ask them about how the market is doing, what is the consumer demanding right now. Now mostly all of that has become virtual. So even our salesmen on the ground have become so tech savvy. They are video calling their set of retailers, They have all made local WhatsApp groups where they are, taking the demands and the orders, etc. So everybody is moving to another level, and we already, as ITC goes, ma'am, we had already, we're very strong on our systems and processes. So everything was already digitized to quite an extent, but now it's
Right.
gone to another level. Now
Anand.
we are also, as an organization, trying to minimize as much personal contact as possible.
Hmm.
So while in a sales profession, that is very tough to do, but you eventually have to figure out ways and means to, have your eyes on the ground even while you're not there. So
Right.
that is something we're learning every day.
So, Meher, when did you decided that you want to opt marketing as your specialization?
Right. So, thank you for asking that, ma'am. This was an important point that I did not get time to bring up. So, like ma'am mentioned, I've interned with Morgan Stanley. My internship was actually in the HR business side of it, and
Right.
only after my internship did I realize that that is not a department I want to get into, or that is not a department I want to work with. So, ma'am, I think it's that's why I kept on harping on this point that it's very important for the kids to have experience. Only if they've tried something is when they will know that this is not meant for me. So I need to go ahead and look for something else. And for me, it was marketing, because I already had experience in a large marketing team in HCL within their corporate communications, sub team, and I realized that this is something that comes naturally to me. It comes naturally in terms of the fact that I figured out my core character strengths. I'm a people's person. I like putting things into like I like implementing things, or I like traveling, and I like so that's how I realized that I want to go ahead and do marketing, and eventually within marketing I want to go into. So it took a lot of experience and a lot of introspection. You start thinking where I can put my skills to use. So that's
So
maybe the someone
initially
who
you
likes
decided,
analysis and an analytic.
right. So initially you decided to take up HR specialization, is that?
Yeah. Initially,
Okay.
that's what I wanted to do, and I once I worked with the team, I figured out that this is not something I'm made for. So so that's how,
Hmm.
and probably other people can do a better job. So that's how I started looking for alternatives, and that's how I figured out marketing.
So now do you think that it is difficult for women to pursue?
It's not difficult, ma'am, but I think you have to be passionate about it. Because if you're not passionate about it, then every day is going to feel like a struggle. Because
Hmm.
fortunately or unfortunately, ma'am, the fact that you are the probably outnumbered gender does not hold a lot of weightage in the minds of people. They will
Right.
just still see you as an area manager. They will not see you as a female area manager. So no
Hmm.
matter what specific problems you are facing, at the end of the
Hmm.
day, yes, the company does support you, but you have to figure out your solutions on your own at some level. So
Hmm.
you have to do that. But it's not tough, definitely, but you just have to be passionate about it. That's about all.
So, like in your session, also you mentioned that in ITC also there would be like maybe one woman working for 8 men in a
Yeah,
team,
yeah,
and the perspective would be different, and everything, the way you manage, the way you lead, would be completely different. So,
absolutely.
how is your journey? How do you take it ahead?
So I was very lucky that way, ma'am. I had a team that was very accommodative, and initially it was very tough because, like I said, we initially, I mean, I'm sure there are so many alumni from IIEBM also who have come ahead and join, ITC, and they're doing very well for themselves. So they will also tell you the same thing on that. The initial 6 months to a year is very tough. It's tough because you are still getting used to a very different geography. You are still getting used to how the company functions, and ITC is a company that you have to understand that has systems and processes in place for 100 plus years now. So for someone new to absorb that takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. And more often than not, you will have to go to more than one source to get your answer. So that is something that can frustrate someone, but you just, you have to have the patience and get through with it. And
Hmm.
then, it gets easier, once you start understanding and liking your work. And even if there are aspects that you don't enjoy, you learn how to counter them, you learn how to get around them, you learn how to work around them, and then you form your team around you. And at the end of the day, man, that part is just like any other organization. You if you have a good supportive team, over you and under you, then it becomes a very easy path to follow. And a lot of that responsibility comes on to us. I mean, you have to make people comfortable around you,
Right.
then, so all of that.
So, the last question. What do you enjoy doing the most when you are working? Like you already said that you are passionate about sales and, marketing and the kind of role you are doing. We can see that you are very much passionate and you are enjoying. But what do you specifically enjoy the most during this?
Ma'am, I think for me it would be the travel, which is actually something that a lot of people don't enjoy in this work. But I love the travel, and
Right.
I love the fact that I mean, in which other profession am I going to meet so many people on a daily basis that I would probably never meet again in my life, and take
Mhm.
away so much from. I am telling you, ma'am, it's crazy, but you have to experience it yourself. I mean, a retailer in a far-flung city like Solapur or Nasik has taught me so much more about the market that any textbook could have taught me, and that is something I will not get in any other profession. So that's the part that I enjoy the most. I really enjoy that part.
Well, thank you so much. The session was wonderful. I think we are still receiving the questions. You
Okay.
can see the chat box is flooded
Yeah.
completely. Any last note, closing comments to the students?
Thank you so much, ma'am, for organizing this and for being so patient with me. We had so many technical follow-ups and all that, and it was lovely. And I loved how professionally everything was done. And I'm sure the college is going to go to greater heights. And even the kids, I already know so many alumni from the college who are doing very well in the corporate sphere. So I'm sure that will apply to this batch as well. And yeah, ma'am, I'm always free to connect with anyone who wants on LinkedIn. So if I can, if they want me to answer something over there, I'm available. And yeah, ma'am, this was a really nice session, and I'm so glad to talk to you and the college and everyone.
Thank you so much, Meher. And I think students would now focus, at least they will introspect and they
Yeah.
will try to understand the best possible attribute that they can
Yeah.
convert into strength. That's the
Yes.
mutual
Yes.
learning after today's session. So thank you so much for your time and have a lovely day ahead. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, ma'am. Thank you. All right.